G'day traders, welcome to wrap up for Tuesday the 15th of October. As always, let's start with a longer term perspective. In the trading rooms, we're constantly referring to this chart. I mean, we've got it projected in the trading room just as a small chart in the bottom right hand corner, so we can see what's happening from a longer term perspective. We can also see these major support and resistance areas as well, because they're areas to be aware of. They're certainly an area, and I'll talk more about it, that we're aware of within today's session. So it's definitely worth having these longer term charts or longer term perspective from a 15-minute chart or 60-minute chart, whatever you find really works for you. Within the trading room, we're constantly referring to the 15-minute chart, so we'll bring it up at the start of the session, really just go through it, talk about the areas, talk about what we believe could happen for the day. For example, opening up, like we got above this key area here, sort of went back and started breaking through these highs, and the fact is we got above here, really thought, okay, if this area wants to hold as we're opening up this area here today, this market's got potential of really coming back and looking to try and go higher, but it's an area to be very wary of, and while we're above it, be very careful trying to sell into that, because it's potentially an area that's going to hold a support. It's a significant area, and in hindsight this is exactly what's happened, and we'll have a look at this on a closer basis. So we talked through that at the beginning of the session. And then, of course, making reference to these longer-term charts as we move along too. It's even though we're short-term traders, we're looking to get in our position in quite a quick amount of time, and only looking for a small amount out of the market. It's still very, very important to have a longer-term perspective. Doesn't mean necessarily daily charts, because maybe that's a bit too long-term, but certainly 15-minute or 60-minute charts give us an idea of what's happening over the last few days, and an idea of trend, momentum, and definitely the support and resistance areas. So let me just shoot that over here. Righto, so here we are. We've got major support resistance area here. We've also got another one down here. So these are the two areas that were sort of effective or we were wary of as far as today was concerned. Again, we got these pre-market boxes, which we start with right at the beginning of the day, make reference to them and referring to them throughout the live markets as we go through it in the trading room. So this first top box here, we've just boxed basically the most significant low and high point of the pre-market, okay, which is this point here, even though we pretty much went lower straight away, but I'll talk about that soon, and also that high point there in the pre-market. Okay, so we've got that sort of that bottom side of the box. We've also got this major support and resistance area. So to start off with, the market was quite choppy, no doubt about that. I mean, these candles, you look at these candles, each of these candles, there's no shortage of sort of 6-7 tick candles, and when we've got stop losses of 4-5 ticks, that makes a very volatile markets. And overall, after finishing today now, today's quite I'd call it, inverted commas, a bit of a crazy day. Sort of these multiple changes in direction and some of these big candles that we got, it's fairly rare, and I'm glad, because today was tough as far as looking for trading opportunities, because it was just, the market was quite crazy. You might sort of sit back and look at the more the market moves, the better. Well, it's not necessarily the case. If it's moving all over the place, going backwards and forwards, it's really hard to get some confidence in an entry. So today is a bit of a rare day. So like I say, that's a good thing. And it was a bit of a full-on sort of day. But in saying that, we had a few of these areas just really wary of, okay, does it want to sort of get down underneath the support, and does it want to sort of get outside this pre-market box? And to start off with, it headed that way, but it was basically a couple of points past, and it's quickly reverted back within the trend. So as always, when we get outside that pre-market box, up until 10 o'clock, we look for that significant low or high point, up until that unofficial opening, or what we call the unofficial opening of the market, which is 10 o'clock. This is when major economic news comes out. Normally, this first half an hour, everyone's sort of just sorting themselves out, getting ready, and then from 10 o'clock onwards, the big institutions, banks, and things like that start trading. So that's why we not only look at the pre-market, we also look at what happens up until 10 o'clock. So that's why I've added a little box here and made a little bit of a low here. So the fact is, quite quickly this market's, even though it got through this support area, it's quickly sort of come back within the range and got above it. You can see it's got above it, came back and used as support, and bouncing straight back off it. So it's indicating that this is sort of significant. We're talking about this in the live market, saying, be wary of this. We're bouncing straight off that support. If we sort of come back at this area again, sort of be careful. So as we're coming up higher here, I believe this market had potential to sort of go on and have a bit of a look higher. Sort of, any sort of decent pullback, and then looking at power fades back to a higher point is always an option. First of all, we've got to get past this sort of point here, which acted as resistance, which you can see is what happened. But if we start going higher, so the next higher point is this pre-market box. Okay, so if we can get through this resistance here, sort of start coming up like this, come back, any sort of move back to test this area here is a good one. That's the sort of those higher probability areas. But in the end, it hasn't done that. It's come back. Well, it's come back within the range, and it's bouncing off the support area here. So again, to be very wary of this, sort of be careful and see what it wants to do around this area. In the end, it's held, and now it starts heading back to these upper areas again. And then from there, it's this is what I mean by it's a bit of a crazy day. That's most days the market will find some sort of trend or sort of go really sniff out the highs or the lows. In this particular case, just kept coming back within the range and sort of jumping all over the place, not giving us any sort of real trading opportunities. So that's what I mean by a bit of a crazy day. But this sort of day is rare. So and then from there, it really just went sideways before it hit this lunchtime period. It just found itself within a channel. And you can see it off that major support and resistance line, just bouncing straight off it. So that's why it's very important to be wary of this. If we've got this marked on our charts, we know exactly what's happening. Then eventually these other markets break through it. Okay, and what you'll see is usually when it does do it, other markets are going to support that move. So you can see here all of a sudden the Russell starts breaking down hard. Let me move the Nasdaq across that same area. All of a sudden you get this massive red candle from the Nasdaq. Okay, all the other markets starts breaking down, and you got this move back to the downside. And where they go to, pretty much down to that next support and resistance area, almost to the tick. And then from there, it's come back straight away. Use that previous support and resistance area as an area again to bounce off. So it's just confirming these areas as quite strong, I should say. So that's the market wrap up for Tuesday. As you see, volatile day, a funny day because it just didn't hold any sort of decent trends. But that's a rare sort of thing, which is certainly good. So anyway, we'll be back to do it all again on Wednesday.